Have you been thinking of doing some renovations to your home lately? This is a question that we get quite often. So I brought back James P. from First Home Inspectors to share with us what he thinks you should not do to your property. What he says about infinity pools and retaining walls might surprise you, so be sure to watch all the way through to the end. And both of our contact information is in the description below. So if you're looking for your next home inspector, please reach out to him. Or if you're ready to make a move and buy or sell in Las Vegas or Henderson, Nevada, I look forward to having a chat with you. Now let's get to it. And we are going to be discussing those things that you people do sometimes to ruin your home. Now, I know a lot of you will usually think like, as soon as you get your home, I want to do all these upgrades. I want to do this, that, and the other. But today we are just going to be sharing with you the fact of, should you though?
Yeah, do you really want to do that?
Do
you have to? So the first thing, and probably the worst defect that I'll see, and this is so expensive, it becomes a huge litigation issue. And if you can avoid it, I would avoid it. And that is infinity pools in homes with large retaining walls. I know a lot of that sounds like mumbo jumbo, so I'll break it down. In these higher end neighborhoods that are on the edges of town, because Vegas kind of built like a bowl, you get these large retaining walls, right? So your house sits up here, you have this large wall that kind of holds up your entire lot.
Yeah.
And then you get this beautiful view because the next house has to be all the way down here, versus in the average neighborhood, you're here and your neighbor's here and you can't see anything past your wall in their house, right? Okay. So these houses with these awesome views. And then I think we've all been on Instagram enough where we see these really rich people and have this beautiful view and they can see all of like LA, even though we're not in LA. And then they have like this infinity pool where like the edge drops off and like it looks incredible.
Yeah.
Now the issue with that, because I've worked on 2 houses that have had this issue and I can't get into all the details, but what ends up happening and what can happen is that your landscaper can build your pool the wrong way and it'll damage that retaining wall. And so if this wall starts to go out, it kind of lowers the density of the soil that's underneath your home, and then your home will start to kind of landslide. And that was actually what was happening. This stuff does happen even in Vegas. It's not just a California thing. This stuff can happen here.
Wow.
Another issue that can happen is that if that pool gets cracked, what will happen is that water will seep out and then it'll start to push on the wall. And I was explaining this to a client a couple of weeks ago about this, and he's like, well, that doesn't make any sense because water is lighter than dirt. And he's right in that respect, but he's missing one crucial detail. Water has a propensity to push outwards on something, right? Versus dirt mostly pushes, is like kind of halfway out, halfway down, right? And so what ends up happening is you have this force pushing directly on the wall out, and it can cause it to lean over, and then once again cause that foundation issue in the home. So it can get really ugly really fast. And if your contractor just thinks, hey, this is just another pool, it is not just another pool. So if you have those houses with really nice views and a really beautiful retaining wall, where you see clear over your neighbor's house that's on the back side of you, be very weary if you're going to do a pool back there.
Gosh.
Very risky.
Wow.
Yep.
So what else do you have for us?
The next one is something I see in 1950s homes, like older neighborhoods. Yeah, what people will do is that in old Vegas, you know, you would have this tiny 1,000-square-foot house and you'd be built out on like an acre, right? And you're just like, over time, like, oh, you know what I can do? I could just add more rooms to this thing. And then I can make this like, you know, 2 bedrooms or whatever, 3 bedrooms and so on. Why not expand? I can get more money for that. What ends up happening is that people do not get it permitted because they're in this mindset the government's just trying to, you know, nickel and dime you, right?
Right.
The government's also kind of trying to save you from yourself, which a lot of people don't realize. And so what I see happen a lot, and this, like, so what people will do, they don't realize your home's kind of built out on a little hill. In places like Denver where they get a lot of rain, the hill's a little bigger, but here we don't get as much, the hill's a little bit smaller, right? When you build that second house, people don't keep it on the same plane as the first house. They just drop it. They're like, why not? Like, what's the worst that could happen? What ends up happening is that it rains and then the water starts to seep up the wall because it's in this like floodplain kind of thing, right? And so water will find its way underneath the home and inside the home, especially if it's in that plane. And I've seen this happen 2 times and both times have been horrific. One girl moved into a home. She didn't get an inspection. I was inspecting it as she was trying to sell it and no one wanted to buy it. She's like, what's going on? I'll tell you. And so she bought that exact same defect where that addition to her home was built in the floodplain. and then it had all sorts of water damage. And the thing is, you can't just work your way out of that.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to grade defects and storm drains and planes and stuff like that, it's nearly impossible to get out of that issue. So for that reason, no one wants to buy that home, and it becomes a very expensive issue very, very fast.
Yeah. Is there a workaround to fix it? And if it is, it might sound really expensive.
If the best workaround that I've thought of to fix that issue is that it's not even a really great idea, but you would knock down the walls and you would shore them up with like temporary shoring to keep the roof up, because you might be able to salvage that. You would build up a curb at the bottom, and then you would frame on top of that curb.
Oh.
If that makes any sense. So I'm not sure if a licensed engineer would say it's a good way of doing things, but I'm trying to be creative here, and that's the best idea I have. Once again, you get it permitted. You know, they'll tell you if it's a good idea or not.
Gotcha. And you know, that's I'm so glad that you said that, because it's been a bit of a talking point lately. A lot of people are like, well, why do I have to pay to get some guy to come out here and tell me what I can do with my property? Blah, blah, blah.
Oh my gosh. It's like, you know, it's these, you know, what guys like me do, right? Because I've been doing this for like 10 years, right? In this industry, is that we know the whole story, if that makes it's like kind of like one big fable. We know a lot of the story. We know that if you do this, this will happen. And some of these things are so obvious, but some of them aren't. And that's for like, if you don't have insulation above your shower in the winter months, your walls will get condensation on them and grow mold. Who would have thought of that? Like, these are not very obvious things to the average person. The average person isn't thinking of things like this. So having these, you know, code inspectors come out, they can save you from a ton of trouble. And honestly, the code is really just trying to protect people from themselves and from contractors that do shoddy work.
Yeah, got it. So hence another reason why it's, number one, important to always get an inspection in our most humble opinion. And number two, to have a reputable one like James here. We will link his contact information below if you're interested and maybe you have more questions, or maybe you need an inspection and he might be your guy for it. So we will link that all below. But let's go ahead and get back to this. So what is another thing that you're like, word of caution when people try to add or be creative?
Be creative with their home. Okay, so landscaping is one of my, I don't want to call it my favorite place, but it's where a lot of people make mistakes, especially in brand new homes. So when you buy a brand new home, they don't do the backyard for it. You have to do your backyard yourself. And you get some creative liberties with that. Two big issues that will completely wreck homes over time is, first of all, the grading, right? So what we need to have is we need to have a swale, basically a V-shaped ditch away from the home, ideally 10 feet out. That thing is really going off. Hopefully you can listen through the grinding of someone sawing inside this high-rise. But basically what your house needs to have is a V-shaped ditch around 10 feet away from the wall of the home, right? What a lot of people will do, and their landscapers don't know this because their landscapers are really into like planting plants, is that they bring that V-shaped ditch right up against the wall, right? And so what happens is all the water from the entire backyard comes slamming all against this one wall, and then it channels left and right around the house. Now, the thing is that the soil underneath our homes are generally compacted to 95% density. So like, we know this soil will weigh this much if it's compacted 100%, and then we have an idea, okay, it weighs this much, here's how much we got out of it, right? What ends up happening is when you have that much water, it lubricates the soil and all the grains in it. It loses its friction. Then that part of the house starts to compress because it goes from 95% to 97 to 100. When it compresses, it takes your house down with it. And that's where you have foundation issues. And so these issues take a really long time to develop. And the worst part about this whole thing is that we will identify these issues to homeowners and let them know, hey, this happened. But they know, the landscaper knows this is an expensive fix. We know it's going to take a long time for something to happen, often a few decades. It never gets fixed. And then, several decades down, they start to have foundation issues. And then, it costs them a lot more money at that time to get it fixed than it did before, right? And so that is a massive, massive defect. Another one that I see, once again, this happens in like higher end neighborhoods where you have those tall retaining walls. Sometimes we'll have what's called a planter, right? And what a planter is, in this definition, is you have this really tall retaining wall, let's say like 18 feet, maybe 20 feet, because I've seen that recently. Then what they'll do is like, okay, we don't want our client, what the builder will do, will say, we don't want our client to just look out and be like, feel like they're living in a prison. So they'll put up, a wall halfway up that you can put plants in, right? Where people get carried away is they start putting trees in there. Now, somewhere in the HOA documents, it'll say, don't put a tree in here, but people don't read it. And the HOA also doesn't enforce it, right? They'll review your plans. They'll say it's approved. And then if something happens to that wall, it's your problem. That's what they'll say 20 years later, because they also have a clause in there that says we're not responsible for missing anything, which is awesome. It's great. Homeowners love it.
Blanket, yeah.
Yeah, a blanket. Yeah, you have to get it approved by us, but if we mess up, it's on you.
Yeah.
It's basically what they
Good
do.
luck.
And so what ends up happening with these walls is that the trees from these plants ends up expanding, and then it starts pushing the wall over. And whenever you have to deal with any type of soil issue and retaining wall issue, all this stuff is so expensive because this isn't just a cute wall. This is literally holding up the building behind you. Right? Oftentimes in these planners, to go off into a real tangent, this wall is literally creating the soil and like the pressure that's pushing that way to support this wall up here. So if this one falls and bends, and then the whole house can come down too.
Like a domino effect.
Like a domino effect. Yeah, like truly like a landslide, and the house comes with it. So definitely do not plant those plants up there. Big trees that have like the roots that spread out everywhere, you probably don't want to do that. Actually, don't do it. There's so many other things that look great. Don't do that.
Get some flowers.
Yeah, get some flowers, get some aloe vera, like all that stuff looks awesome. A bush?
What about cactus?
Cactuses look great. I don't know what the root structure is like, but I feel like they're pretty chill.
Yeah, not like a palm tree.
A palm tree is problematic. Oak tree is problematic.
Willow.
I wouldn't.
Out of the question.
Oh, willows, by the way, another tangent here. They love to put all this stuff, the willows and the pine trees, something about the way those like leaves fall off, they always get on the roof and they cause damming issues. And then they can cause roof leaks. So if you could stay away from those, stay away from those. There's plenty of tree options out there.
Just not those ones.
Yeah, not those ones.
I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you learned something new or maybe have a story to share, go ahead and drop that in the comments section below. We look forward to posting more videos about home inspections and other real estate topics aside from home tours. So be sure to be on the lookout for that and go ahead and subscribe and tap that notification button. My name is NashiraGamino, your Las Vegas realtor. Thanks for watching and we'll see you on the next one.